Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, certified business coach and author of Knock It Out of the Park Leadership, Michael Dill. Hey, what you drinking? You know, there are very few things that I like better than curling up with a nice glass of whiskey, sitting down with a fellow leadership dude or dudette, and really having this conversation about what it really takes to be an effective leader. And this is going to be no exception. On another show that I do on a weekly basis with Miss Ann McNeil, season 2 guest, and queen of all things Think and Grow Rich, I had a fantastic opportunity to meet our next guest, and it was halfway through the first part of that conversation that I said, "Oh my gosh, I need to share Mr. Michael Dill with my Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership audience." So he's here. Michael, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing fantastic.
Well, hey, we're gonna get into this conversation. You are doing this thing for real. You are right in the throes of developing leaders. You've got so many different opportunities to help leaders get from where they are to where they need to be. So we're gonna get in. We're gonna talk about all that. But the first question, and we all know it's the most important question, and the question that really kicks this thing off: what you drinking?
I got a little Balvenie 14 on a nice little rock there in the glass, and let me just take a sip.
Hey, Belvini, man, I didn't realize that you were playing at that end of the continuum. That's some good stuff. Well, you know, for this one, you know, I've been traveling quite a bit this past week, and I take off again on Sunday, and I'm going to be traveling again for another entire week. So I just decided to get something that is really dependable. It's nice. It's not something that I normally drink, but when I had it there in the shop, I said, you know, this is a good, just get it done, enjoy the evening type conversation, and that is Basil Hayden, 10-year aged bourbon whiskey. And my good friend Latasha Colbert Reed, Basil Hayden is one of her favorites, but you know, I don't know that she's been dealing with this 10-year-old. So I'm gonna crack this open and pour me some. That's it. Pour me a little bit. And that's not quite a finger, but that's enough to get us started. So, Michael, you know, I know a little bit about what you do and what you've done, but my audience might not be familiar with who you are. So could you just kind of take us back, talk a little bit about where you've been, what you've done, so that as we get into this conversation, folks can realize that, you know, there are some people who understand leadership because they've read all the books and they've studied it. They've got the certification. They've got the degrees. There are some people who understand leadership because they've been through the battles, they've been through the wars, they've got the scars, and most of those scars have healed. And then there are a select number of people that have done both, right? They've got the scars, They've made some mistakes. They have worked really, really hard to correct those mistakes, and then they went and they did some training. They did some study to understand the theory, the philosophy, the principles behind it. And I just have a feeling that that's the kind of conversation we're going to get into. So, talk a little bit about your background so that we can jump into this conversation as I jump into this Basil Hayden.
Certainly. Well, you sip as much as you want. I started in the restaurant business like any young lad would, 14 years old, washing dishes, worked myself up to restaurant management at the age of 30, left the restaurant and became a financial advisor. Built up my book, sold it in 2005, consulted advisors up until 2012. Company I represented out of Pennsylvania hit a rough spot. Since I was the furthest away and least likely to control, I was the first to go. And 54 years old, I was always one of the top producers, but I realized first time in my life that even though I stepped up and delivered the goods, I still couldn't control my ultimate outcome. And I was searching through a success magazine, just flipping through, and I saw this thing called Action Coach about growing yourself, growing your business while helping others reach prosperity and abundance. I'm like, this looks interesting. And I started doing my due diligence. And I'm the type of person, Galen, that doesn't force the issue. I always take a walk and let the answer come to me. And on a particular day, I took a walk, and there's a series of questions I ask myself. And the first question is, what am I happy about in my life right now? And to the audience, have you ever asked yourself a question and the answer just came automatically and think about it? So I asked myself, what am I happy about my life right now? And the answer was, I'm happy I believe I found my calling. And I kept repeating it over and over and over and over. Like, I'm happy I think I found my calling. And I walked across the street, and across the street from my house is a church. And in front of the church is a statue of Mother Mary. And I got to tell you, Galen, when I saw the statue of Mother Mary, all bets were off. And somebody else all of a sudden took charge. And I was shaking, sweating, chills, out of body experience to the point that if someone was to tell me, I wouldn't believe them. Walk takes about 40 minutes, and it took me about 40 minutes just to gain my composure to realize, like, what just happened there. And I got to the second question, which is, what am I excited about? And again, the answer just came automatically. I'm excited about my future. I'm excited about my future. I'm excited about my future. And I was ready. I got to the end of the walk, and I was ready to cross the street to go home. I took one step down the curbing, then I stopped. I put my foot back on the curbing and like, okay, Michael, you got to embrace the fact that something just happened there. And that wasn't a normal walk. So every time we have a situation like that in life, we can do one of two things. We can avoid it or we can embrace it. I embraced it. I went back to the Mother Mary, put my hand on her head and the statue, looked up and said, God, I wasn't looking for help, but if this is your sign, I'll follow your lead. And I realized I am here to serve. And at that point in time, I realized that God just appointed me to work on being the best I need to be so I can help others. And I realized at the same time that wealth creation is a byproduct of getting everyone else what they want. And when I went back, called the ML and said, I'm good to go. ML is a massive licensor. So I'm good to go. He goes, what happened? I told him the story. When God puts his hand on your shoulder and said, this is where you need to go, you listen. And I've been blessed to the fact that that happened to me, that my journey and became so clear on what I needed to do and who I need to be to help others.
Wow, wow. So I hear so many people and clients that might hear your story and say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want to do. And I wish I had some sort of road to Damascus type experience so that I could figure out what I want to do. Right. And actually, just this past week, I was working with a group of people. It was a group leadership development type program. And one person actually said, Well, Galen, that's great, but I don't know what I want to do. And I'm going to share with you what I said to him, and I want you to clean it up because I told him, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you don't know what you want to do. What I believe is that everyone knows what they were put on this planet to do. I think everyone knows. At the same time, they might not be able to articulate it. So you might not be able to answer the question, what do I want to do, in words. But just because you can't answer the question doesn't mean that you don't know. And I talked about the fact that on the 29th of April, if I'm lucky to make it to the next 29th of April, I will have been married to the same person for 30 years. And if someone were to ask me, of all the women on the planet, how do you know that she's the one? Well, I know. I just can't explain it. I can't put it into words. And the reason I can't is because the part of the brain that controls knowing is not always the part of the brain that controls language. So we can know a thing and not be able to explain it. And I love the fact that you just acted. I don't know if you could explain it, but you just acted. Help me articulate better, or maybe even clean this up. This idea that you can know a thing, you can know your purpose and not be able to explain it. And that's where you need to find someone possibly to help you articulate what you already know.
As we speak about it, our purpose is to make an impact. The thing that we have a problem with, and which I was so fortunate to be touched, was where, how, and why. Where can I make that impact? How can I make that impact? And what's my why behind making that impact? And I think if everybody asked the question, where do I want to make an impact? How can I make an impact? And why do I want to make a difference? They answer those three questions, they'll be able to come up with it pretty quick.
I love that. I mean, and that is the sign of what coaches do. Very, very often, I meet people who are in these really brainy industries. I worked with a client who was literally working for SpaceX, and he was literally in charge of like one component of building a rocket. And so his question was, Galen, what possibly could you tell me to help me do my thing better? You know, I see your background, and it doesn't say anything about engineering, doesn't say anything about, mechanics, and one of the things that I think he realized is that it's not our jobs to tell you, give you the answer. But it's those kinds of questions that you just work through that executives get the benefit of when they work with someone like a Michael Dill from Action Coach. How important are questions, strategically placed, artfully asked questions in the work that you do?
Oh my God. The hardest thing for people to do is think, and thinking takes work. So most avoid it. That's why marketing is so effective, to get people to make decisions, because they could just believe what they want to believe, make a decision, and marketing understands that. And a lot of other things. I use this a little simple analogy when I became a coach, between the tortoise and the hare. And I get clients to slow down so they can speed up. Slow down by asking them questions. Say, I'm curious, Galen, why would you do that? And all of a sudden you stop. And just by me asking you a question, it's a whole different exercise than just listen. And you have to stop. You have to think. You have to analyze why you do that. And then you somewhat analyze and realize, like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And then you say, why do I do that? I said, I'm not sure, Galen. I'm just asking the questions. You're the one that does it. And then all of a sudden, the conversation, your brain becomes conscious of what you're actually doing, because you slowed down, somebody asked you a question, and then you start pursuing conversation a little bit further. What could it look like if you wanted to be different, so on and so forth. And now they have forced to use their brain and go somewhere they wouldn't normally go on their own because they're too busy and they don't have enough time and all that blah, blah noise that they use. And the power of asking questions, it gets people to stop and think and recognize what is really happening, embrace it, see if it works or not. Then they know they have someone like us that can lead them on the right course of action. I actually just asked them, so what do you think would be a better course? And all of a sudden they have this big aha and it impacts them for their life. But most people, they don't want to go there.
Wow. Wow.
If you ask a question, the first answer anyone would ever give you is the surface answer. It's not the real answer. I tell all my clients, whatever they say, whatever answer they give you is not the real answer. Probe, ask more questions to get to the real answer.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that? And we all have a tendency to do that, right? I mean, I coach executives literally all over the world. I do this at an incredibly high level, but yet I have two executive coaches that I work with, or that work with me, and they coach me, and they're asking me the same questions that I'm asking my clients. So why do you think that we all have this tendency to give surface level answers as opposed to going to the level where some of us know that we need to go? Some of us know that that's where the real jewels are, but we're reluctant to go there. What do you think is behind that?
It's a really simple answer, but no one wants to really hear it. It's we're lazy. We're lazy. I mean, everybody listening to this call went car shopping. And the salesman comes out, and a lot of people have this association to salesmen, pushy, arrogant, so on and so forth. And whatever association you have to a word sales, if you have negative association to sales, you're going to have a hard time making a sale. You have positive associations to salesmen, you're going to have an easy time making a sale. But most salesmen will come out and say, you're looking at a car, and he says, can I help you? What's the first thing we say?
No, I'm just looking. I'm just looking.
What you're really thinking, I want your ass to come over here, get a key, open the door, put my butt in the seat, and let me smell the leather, let me feel the comfort of the seat, look at the dashboard. But no, we give them some lazy answer. It's a reactionary thing. It's like Pavlov's dog. Someone asks a question. Ask a little kid. Go up to a little kid. There could be houses burning in the neighborhood. There could be fire trucks everywhere. What's going on? Oh, nothing. Really? What are you talking about? Nothing. Look what's going on. We're just lazy. We don't want to think. The first answer is just an easy answer. It's kind of like, here's the answer. Go away. Let me be on my own.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right. So, I've gotten so into this conversation. I don't know that I've even established the foundation in its proper way. And that is, I love to ask my brilliant guests, people who've been around, people who have done a few things and they've seen a few things, to help me explain from your perspective the connection between three things that on the surface don't necessarily seem like to connect. And that is the name of this podcast, whiskey, jazz, and leadership. Now, I put the three together because I literally like all three. I literally like all three. I like whiskey. I think I got like 85 bottles of whiskey and 80 of them are open. So I'm not a collector. I like whiskey. I like jazz. I'm really getting into vinyl jazz, and I don't understand the difference between jazz that I can play on my phone and jazz that I have to put a needle on vinyl, but it sounds different when it comes from vinyl. I like jazz literally. And leadership, that's my thing. It doesn't take much for me to have a conversation about leadership. I also like the metaphor. And so for me, the metaphor of whiskey is doing what you enjoy with the folks you enjoy it with. The metaphor of jazz is getting from where you are to where you need to be, even in situations where you don't have sheet music in front of you, or the sheet music just is not going to work this time. And then for me, the metaphor of leadership is social media is fun, marketing is cool, strategy is really, really important, but nothing's going to happen until someone does something. Someone has to step up and say, we're going to take this action at 2:30 this afternoon. Unless somebody comes up with a better idea, we're going left. And until that happens, then we're just having a conversation. Does that connect at all with anyone other than me? Does that make sense to you? And if so, how?
And people ask me, what's your marketing? I was having a conversation with a bunch of coaches and they were talking about marketing and all the money and this and that and everything else. They said, listen, it's real simple. Who are your clients that you want to work with? Where are they? Go there. It's real simple. So I like hanging out with high level guys, smoking a cigar, drinking a scotch, eating good food, and talking business and life. And what it does when you find commonalities like whiskey, jazz, leadership, it takes all the barriers down. You might meet somebody on your own, think you have nothing common with, and all of a sudden you're sitting down having a conversation about life, business, and challenges and wins and all that stuff. And it just gives the ability to take the armor out of the way and just give two human beings the ability to sit back, relax, and have a conversation.
I like it. It doesn't get more simple than that. It doesn't get more simple than that.
Same thing with leaders when they tell me, I love when they give me this big explanation about a certain employee and this, that, and everything else. And I'll just say, I've got a question for you. And what's that, coach? Have you had the conversation with them? No, why? Well, there's not much I can do about it. It's just a conversation. Sit down and say, Galen, do I have your permission to speak freely? And of course, you're going to say yes, and then just speak freely and have a conversation. What's the big deal? We complicate things. Just make it simple.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.